Official. Hi, welcome, Krish, to the Doctor Nurse Podcast. So happy to have you on today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
For those that are just tuning in, can you kind of describe what it is that you do, what your company is about?
I am a co-founder and I'm the CEO of NP Hub. We are the largest nurse practitioner preceptor placement agency in the country. We help students find clinical sites around the country because for whatever reason it is, graduate nurses get the shaft and students, universities do not help them find clinical rotations. And as a result, what you have is thousands of nurses every month, really, that are delaying graduation, that are unable to find preceptors, that are begging and pleading, literally cold calling to try to find a clinical site. And that's where we come in. So I'm the CEO of the company. We have been really fast growing. We're about, I think at last count, maybe around 45 employees. We handle well over 2,000, 2,500 placements a year now between every month. We're helping at least 200 students. And the truth is we could probably help another 200-300 like this if we had more preceptors. So that's really, my main job here is just helping my company grow, making sure that we're doing the right thing. Believe you can build a business and to care about your community and care about the customers and clients that you serve. And for whatever reason, the nurses get the shaft. They're like our teachers. They're overworked, underpaid. And, I think I kind of classify myself as like a nurse advocate in a way. That's maybe how I think about it. But that's like the answer.
That was one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast and to have you come and talk to nurses, because a big focus of the Doctor Nurse Podcast is creating a level of self-efficacy for nurses to ask for what they're worth and to go out and find side hustles. Your business and what you're the leader of is an opportunity for nurses to generate some side revenue from their skills and their expertise. One of the things I'd like to kind of touch on before we dive more into what NP Hub is, how much can nurses make, all this stuff. Tell me, why is it that you think nurses or universities aren't plugging in their students with preceptors? Like, what is going on there in your opinion?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that for whatever reason in graduate nursing, what you've had is because the typical student is typically older, they're working full time, they've probably been an RN for a few years, they tend to be a bit older of a crowd. So it's not a direct program, right? You're not going from, you see it sometimes now where you go RN to NP, but I think a lot of nurses have their opinion and they don't like that, right? You want to have a nursing experience. So as a result, nurses tend to want the flexibility. And I think universities have created this more hybrid online model to help accommodate for it. When you decentralize the location of your students, it's hard to build a clinical site infrastructure. That's like the fancy way of saying like, okay, because you go online and now you recruit students from multiple different states, you can't build in these clusters of rotations in every state. But if you focus on like, say, Atlanta or New York or whatever, it's easier just to like build in a hub, even though that's challenging. I think that's what's happening in the space right now.
I think you're right.
Look, a lot of universities, as amazing as they are understaffing their clinical departments. So that way there's very little emphasis, time, or energy given to the preceptor. So the preceptors are like, no one's helping me do anything. And they have to do all the heavy lifting.
Tell me a little bit about how you developed NP Hub and how you saw this gap and how you filled it with your business, and kind of walk me through your entrepreneurial journey.
My very first company I started failed, actually. It was in real estate investing, which just made no sense because I was 23. I did not invest in real estate. But basically what had happened is I had quit a full-time job in New York City, moved down to Atlanta to sort of restart, saved up 6 months of money to kind of start a company. And that first company, like I mentioned, failed after 4 months. So I had 2 months of expenses remaining. Like I had less than like $8,000. And I was 24 at the time, like burning through my savings. And I just needed to prove to myself I could be an entrepreneur. In my culture, I'm a first gen Indian in the US. In our culture, if like you're smart, you become a doctor, an engineer. Every stereotype that exists, guys. So like that's like real, and that didn't fit for me, right? I was never like the book smart person. So I wanted to prove myself I could be an entrepreneur. And my first company, I started helping medical students find clinical rotations. And in that organization, that business, we partnered with universities. Typically it was international programs, and we were sort of like their outsourced placement department. And we had a student for 2 years. Their core rotations for 48 weeks, and then their electives for like 26 weeks or whatever. It's like a total of 70 or something like that. And in the med school space, we were like one of 15 competitors. We did a good job and it was cool.
Yeah.
But I never realized that, like, I could have never imagined that US NP programs put their students through the ringer like this. Like, I always thought it was like, okay, these international programs are underfunded. Okay, like I get it. But in the NP space, in the US, like, you don't have to have that bias. Like, how can we do this? And again, at the RN level, it's set up pretty well, right? It's like you have your clinicals, like you go through these, you go through this over and over and over again. You're really focused on passing the NCLEX, like you're just going hard at it. But the NP programs are so just, I don't want to say poorly organized, it's the wrong word, but it's organized differently. So in the end,
it's that thing that you were saying. It's decentralized, so it's more fragmented.
Exactly.
I think maybe that's the word. It feels very fragmented.
No,
and you do feel alone. A lot of nurse practitioners, students will describe feeling like kind of a lone island because you go to school online, you're working as an RN, and you're just kind of all by yourself. Like, it just feels very alone in that process.
The hospitals where you're working at, they don't care about you. You see everything that's happened in the last 2 years. Like, I think I can accurately say that. And I don't think anyone would.
Yes.
And then your NP programs aren't able to give you the personalized attention. So literally you're graduating and you have this massive imposter syndrome. And that's what NPs are going through. But to finish up on the story thing, in the MD space, we were one of 15 competitors and we did a good job. I was proud of the work that we did. In the NP space, if we don't do what we did and we didn't make that transition, these NP students aren't graduating. So for me, it was just a matter of like, I can run a good business in the MD space, or I could do something unique in the NP space and like really get to help a community that they're underserved. They lack resources.
Yeah.
And they get overlooked. So that was
I love your first story that you told me about your first nurse practitioner that reached out to you and was asking for help. And she was emotional when, again, like you weren't even servicing NPs. Like, they came to you and they're like, could you help me?
Yeah.
And that's what really got you into that business. It actually is a super like emotional story that you shared with me.
It was our first year of business in 2015. And I was outside of Starbucks in Atlanta, Georgia. And I get this call because, again, we'd work with med students. And we had like a website so people would enroll saying, like, hey, could you help us, reach out to me, et cetera. And it was an NP student. And she was from Walden University. I didn't even understand what her requirements were. We had no idea how to price. But she basically said, like, I've sat out a year. I cannot find a preceptor. I'm in Atlanta and I just need a pediatric preceptor. I just happen to have recruited a preceptor in Lawrenceville, Georgia, which is like kind of like a suburb of Atlanta. So I called this preceptor. I'm like, hey, would you take this student? This is the documents they need. It's a little bit more than normal, but just can you sign it and return it back to me? And within 2-3 hours, we had this back. And she was literally crying. Like, she was just like, how does this? She didn't understand it. NPs, I think, are used to being alone and being isolated. Mm-hmm. And for us, having like a service that could just kind of get it done for them was just right there.
Yeah. There is a level of that isolation that then continues into practice. You end up becoming a provider that works independently, that thinks that it enhances a scarcity mindset. Because if you think preceptors are in abundance and I've got options galore, then you generate and you operate differently as an NP. But if you're in this mindset of there's not enough preceptors, I can't get anyone to find a preceptor for me. And you think all of a sudden now you're going to be like, oh, let me have pay transparency and let people know what I'm making. And then let me make sure that there's enough money for me to get paid a salary that I feel like is appropriate for the work that I'm doing, and not just taking whatever physicians offer us and just go, thanks for the job. It just keeps us in this scarcity mindset. It just is so limiting. You shouldn't have a preceptor shortage issue. This seems completely just awful to me that you don't have enough preceptors, because we should be presenting enough options so that every nurse practitioner student can find someone, so that we can have this abundance mindset of there's enough for all of us. Enough.
I agree with you 300%, because so here's something interesting that you said. When you're an RN, before you've gone to NP school, from like a balance sheet hospital perspective, and I know like when I say something like this, people are like, oh, we're more than a balance sheet. But from like a hospital perspective, you're on the cost side of service, right? You are under the line. Anyone's looking at financial statements, you're under the line, your cost.
Yes.
But when you're an NP and you're a provider, you are no longer that. You're an income generating. In the business case, what generally happens if you generate income is that you are paid your base, which should be a fair base, and there is some sort of incentive bonus, right? Let me ask you something. When you're a practice manager and you see if in a day you can give incredible care to 25 patients versus someone else who can give incredible care to 20 patients, well, then you are 20% better. 25%, excuse me, math. Oh, my dad would hit me right now. You are 25% better. and that there needs to be a reward, because otherwise what ends up happening is then why would you continue to work hard? We don't need to have this mindset of you should do this out of the goodness of your heart and have that be this sort of like opposite sign of like being financially abundant, if that makes sense. Right? Like,
why can't those two things coexist? Why can't you be a good person and want to make money? Why are those two things mutually exclusive? I don't understand that. I don't understand that. And that's one of the things I want to start generating conversations around for NPs, showing what you're worth, also having a good heart. You can still be a nurse practitioner. Those things intersect, and that's okay. I want nurse practitioners to create side hustles, to do things independent of their workplace. If their workplace isn't paying them what they deserve, then go and find and create and do things that are going to bring you money to supplement your income. Eventually, you can leave that other job and go do the thing that brings you joy and lights you up in an entrepreneurial space if you want to. If not, you can find another company that's going to pay you. You can go into industry. You can go into corporate. Like, there are spaces for nurses in every field, especially if you feel like you're not being compensated appropriately. And I love that NP Hub is an option for nurses to generate some income. And with that being said, please describe to me the structure of NP Hub and describe to me kind of how the process works.
Totally. So I think the easiest reference point I like to explain is Airbnb. So we developed a platform that helps connect nursing NP students with preceptors around the country. The idea, like you said a few minutes ago, was that, again, NP students, preceptors are massively underappreciated. So our model was, okay, let's bring them together. Let's appreciate this community. That's all we do. We appreciate the community. And then on the other side, of the student side, is these students are beg, borrow, and pleading for a preceptor. What if we gave them options? What if they can actually choose the preceptor they wanted to work with, as opposed to begging for anyone that says yes? Right. And that's why you can look at. So on the NP Hub, on the platform, which you can go to our website, it's there, you could basically search for preceptors given your criteria if you're a student. Okay. So, hey, I'm looking for a women's health preceptor in Dallas, Texas to start on this date. And then you'll see maybe 5 options come up, or 3 options come up, or 20 options, or whatever. If it's primary care in a market, in 20 options. And then you literally can open up these tabs and read through the descriptions. Okay, hey, the patient population is this. This is the type of patients that they see. This is the dress code that they have. This is a note that a preceptor might leave for the student. Hey, I want to have 4th semester students, preferably, because I might want to hire you afterwards. So like, first semester student knows, okay, this is a fast-paced clinic. They see 30 patients a day. I'm not equipped for that. But this is a slower clinic. They see 5 patients a day, 10 patients a day. That's good for me. I want to go there. So those expectations are matched with their experience. So on the student side, they have this platform they can come in. On the preceptor side, right, for them, it's making this experience easy for them, because it's been such a massive barrier to precept. If you want to precept a student, you basically can like randomly just like put it online, put it on social media or something like that, and like 1 million students are going to start messaging. You don't know anything about them. You don't know their resume. You don't know their experience. You don't know anything about them. When you get a request, when you're a preceptor on our platform, you basically reach out to someone on our team and they basically give you this walkthrough. They ask you these questions. They interview you. What's your clinic like? What are the patients you see? Everything that every student is going to ask you over and over and over and over and over again, every time they want to know about your experience, we put it up there. And when you get a request, then you get a text message. Hey, you got a request. Check out it on your dashboard. Okay, you could request their CV. You want to interview? Okay, let us know. We'll organize an interview for you. Not everybody just wants a random student. That's understandable. What we've seen is preceptors, people want to precept. But the issue is a lot of times at work, they're bogged down with they've either had two issues. They've had bad student in the past, it's ruined it for them. Or at work, it's really busy and they're afraid it's going to slow them down. So you may want to interact with them. You may want to communicate with them. And I think for us, being that barrier in between does two things. It makes the student take the precepting experience more seriously, and the preceptor takes it more seriously as well. Because when there's a financial exchange, there's also a sense of ownership over this.
I love this quote that says, when you pay attention. I love that. Because isn't that great? Because when you do, there's this kind of connection between the moment you fork over money, you're a little more invested in, okay, where's this going? What's happening? Because it hurts a little bit, right?
On the preceptor side as well, when they're receiving some sort of compensation as well, they're taking it more seriously.
Yes, it's true.
It's more than just, yeah, come shadow me a little bit, and things are getting busy, don't show up today. No, we don't have issues.
What you're describing is that the people that are paying for this service, they really want good clinical experience.
You're 1,000% right. And it's funny, we've actually had some of our students eventually turn into, obviously we've had students eventually become preceptors, but we've actually had in several cases now, students open up a clinic and their old preceptor ended up being the collaborating physician in some cases.
What?
It's like really cool to see.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Right? Let's talk a little bit again to finish up and wrap up. How can NPs sign up? And again, what is the average pay? What are the average preceptor pay? And then how do they sign up to join NP Hub?
That's a great question. So how you sign up is basically you can go to nphub.com and then there's a button at the top that says become a preceptor, and you can put in your information there and someone on our team will reach out to you. That's probably the fastest way. Any other way is you can also, even though it's kind of rare, you could also just go to our website and you'll see our phone number and shoot us a text saying, hey, I want a precept. And believe me, someone's going to call you real quick. Okay.
They're hungry. They're ready for you.
Oh man, I got a team. I got a team that's on it right now. In terms of compensation, so there is a range, right? So different specialties, we basically have tried to create as much ownership of this as possible. So we allow our preceptors in a way to sort of choose their own pricing. We'll let you know what the typical is. And if you want to increase it or you want to decrease it based on what the typical is in your area, that's based on specialty and location, you can do that. I would say on average, most of our preceptors take 2 students a semester. And I would like to say that 1,000 per student is very reasonable. It could be.
Did you hear that?
1,000 per student. It could be less, 750. It shouldn't be any less than 750. It could be more if you're a really hot specialty in New York City or LA, fine, get it. But 1,000 per preceptor team. When you're taking 2 students a semester so you're taking 8 students a year, that's $8,000. You're taking 6 students a year, that's $6,000.
Guys, nurses should not be broke or burned out. We should not be. Again, check out NP Hub. See if it's something that you want to do with your business. If you own your own business, taking on students, just extra income. I know students will, especially NP students, would love to see an entrepreneur. We want more people doing what we're all doing, so we're not short-staffed and we're not all tired and we're not exhausted. There's plenty to go around. I definitely feel like we need to do a better job at cultivating an abundance mindset, having students on, letting them see what you do. Not only that, it will change you as the preceptor. If you can create connections, if you can mentor and take this person that you're bringing on as a student, you might find that you could actually end up changing their lives. You could end up being the person that they go, I had this one preceptor and she did this and it changed my trajectory for my life or whichever. And that's really what it's about. We're not in competition. We're supposed to be collaborating with one another. And I love that story that they ended up collaborating at the end of their preceptorship because they were like, you're great. And I want you working with me. And that should be the mantra that we have in nursing.
I agree. We made our pricing strategy. You know what it was? We paid our NPs the same we paid our MDs. It was really important to me. When we were creating this, we were going to pay our NPs the same we paid our MDs. So the kickback was we made less money, but that's fine. Because just because you can charge, see for us, just because you can maybe pay an NP preceptor less because they're not used to being paid, doesn't mean you should. Doesn't mean you could, just because you could charge a student more, doesn't mean you should, you know? There's ethics involved with how you do things, right? You have to be able to sleep at night. I want to make it super clear because I know like my team is going to be like, you didn't say it the right way. We pay our preceptors more for the longer the student's there. So one of the things that really drives me nuts is people aren't really valued for their time. Like this is just like historic, right? So you do extra work, you should get paid more. You take a student on for 200 hours, there's more compensation. You take a student on for 60 hours, there's less compensation. That's reasonable. That's fair. We know that's fair.
Yeah.
So I want everyone to know that. So you're taking on these students for longer hours, it's more than 1,000. So keep that in mind. It is crazy how many students, preceptors have told us that having a student, especially for the preceptors that are sort of like on the fence, it's like maybe they've had you need a year of experience to qualify to be a preceptor. That's like the rule for every school. These preceptors, these new preceptors, these fresh NPs with 1 to 3 years of experience that still have that sort of like angst sometimes. They're like, I'm not ready to teach. I don't think I want to. There's so many preceptors that they do it and it's like this confidence boost of how much they know. They were right there. They were right there in NP. They still remember what it was like to feel so lonely in NP program. They're the best preceptors.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
You know, so if you're scared about it, you're like, oh, I'll do it in a few years. Just think about precepting one student. Just not a commitment. Just try one and see if it actually is like you're not ready yet or if you're just a little nervous.
That's really good. Any other qualifications that they need?
I would say that, 1 year of experience, valid license, obviously.
Yeah.
The key 4 or 5 specialties tend to get the most requests, which is primary care, women's health, pediatrics, psych, mental health, in a major market.
That's why I love NP Hub, because it's like, okay, I can go do that. I can go make a little bit more money over here. And $2,000, that can, again, if you're saying $8,000 a year, that can change the needle on certain things. Pay off your house quicker. That can change the needle on student loans. That could change the needle on putting away for your college, for your children. That changes the needle for a lot of things for people. And so, yeah, we can't underestimate these little things that we can do as we work at a bigger macro job, and we can have our hand in multiple pots. You never want to just be in one pot.
With you. I think what really kills me is that this understanding that I feel like I would never have, these conversations wouldn't happen when I'm talking to MD preceptors or MDs. This is what bothers me the most, is that they're doing the same thing. But in one, it's just like this ideological thing of, oh, I shouldn't be able to do this, or we should do this. We should just have the goodness of our heart. That's what you hear every time I've talked to a university. Oh, we pay preceptors? No, they should do the goodness of their heart. I'm sorry, nurse who hasn't, seen a patient in 50 years. What's happening right now is you cannot scale education. You cannot solve the healthcare shortage in the US by the goodness of someone's heart. That's not how you fix the problem. You fix it to a scalable solution that fits everybody. Okay? Sure, I wish Uber was free and I could get free transportation everywhere in the world, or public transportation, every city was free, but that's not how it works.
Nurses have been taught to just go work in the hospital. Don't look around. And it's like, no, we need to be questioning. We need to be looking around. We need to be seeing what our other options are and not feel like we can't do other things. And I think that is also how we end up staying oppressed, is by not seeing all the options that we have. You can't dream when you're told narrowly, you can only go here. So I'm only going to be a primary care nurse practitioner. But yet I found out afterwards, it's like, oh, wait, I can first assist at the bedside. Like, what? Oh, I can help like harvest like veins, and I can learn how to do what? I didn't know that. I didn't know.
Interesting.
Let's open him up. Let's let people see what's going on around here. Let's let the left hand know what the right hand's doing. Let's talk.
That's interesting. You're right.
And we can't have those conversations if we aren't collaborating, if we aren't talking. Again, scarcity mindset doesn't allow for more opportunities. Yeah. It decreases opportunities. You look at problems instead of, this could actually be solutions by looking at it through an abundance lens.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're describing like a growth mindset, a growth-oriented, a growth mindset community of nurses that there's probably not nearly enough of them there. And I would imagine then you kind of bring in like these expert nurses, kind of like yourself, or like the lead NP, to kind of do a talk and like share that with the community and really get this knowledge transfer.
Yeah. And there's some of those communities out there.
Yeah,
A lot of nurse
sure.
practitioners are creating them. I've been to a couple of them. I've been a part of them, and they're great. You just go and you talk about the things that you want to be a part of and you are passionate about and things that you want to see in nursing. What I love is that the people that are in charge of them really want to make sure that the people are being fostered and they're being seen and they're being, encouraged and stuff like that. So they're out there for sure. So for the last part of the interview,
I'm ready.
we do rapid fire. Okay. These are coming at you fast. You ready?
Right. Am I allowed to curse?
No. Okay,
no,
here we go. What's the best age to be?
The age you are.
The age you are. All right. And what is your favorite game of all time? Board game.
Board game. Chess comes to mind. I like chess.
Chess.
Yeah. I got chess.
Okay. Okay. The game of strategy. And then what are you most grateful for in the whole wide world?
My team. I care a lot about especially my first 15, 20 employees. It gives me a reason to try to get better. I do a lot of what I do for them.
Yeah. That's really cool because that's, again, leadership trickles down, right? And so they know when you care about them. They know when you have that servant, like you would do anything for these people. People work differently when they feel that way.
I think from a preceptor point of view, it's you guys have got underappreciated for a long time and you shouldn't be. Whether you precept with us, you precept with someone else, there's more than enough to go around, right? But you should get support. And I think that's the biggest thing. It doesn't need to be this hard. So that's, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm on NP Hub, guys. It's nothing that I'm just preaching and I'm not about. And I think that, again, more NPs need to just jump on. We need to support our nurse practitioner students. And ain't nothing wrong with getting paid while you do it.